shalt thou make thee in all thy gates, which the Lord thy God giveth thee throughout thy tribes, and they shall judge the people with just judgment. Thou shalt not wrest judgment, thou shalt not respect persons, neither take a gift for a gift doth blind the eyes of the wise, and pervert the words of the righteous. That which is altogether just shalt thou follow, that thou mayest live, and inherit the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee.
Okay, so you see God giving instruction on judges, right? And they had to be, like I said, impartial and not pervert justice in any way, right? A lot of what, like our court system and a lot of court systems around the world, they get a pattern of this right out of the Bible, right? So whenever there was a discrepancy in the law between people and they couldn't work it out, they had to take it to court, right? So just like that, but you see it being set up here. And my goal today is just to go through the commandments one by one and get through as many as we can and just methodically read it like that and see if it's starting to ring a bell and make sense. So we're going to continue. Somebody pick up Exodus 21 and verse 2 and 3. Anybody can read. If you feel like reading, go ahead and read.
Exodus 21, verse
2 and 3.
If thou buy an Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve, and in the 7th he shall go out free for nothing. If he came in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he were married, then his wife shall go out with him.
Okay, so who is this talking to? Servants is talking to those owners, and you know, right off the bat, you know, when you hear servant, you hear slavery. Let me just point out that servitude and chattel slavery have nothing to do with each other. It wasn't like that to be a servant. You know, we know that Deuteronomy 28, verses 1 through 15 talks about the blessings, 16 through 68 talks about the curses, and we know that slavery and chattel slavery was brought on us. But when it talks about servitude and servant, you know, servants were like hired workers or indentured servants, you know, that were working off of debt, you know, or something like that. So if they got themselves into debt some type of way, they would try to sell everything that they had to pay off that debt. And if they still didn't have enough to pay off the debt that they had, then as a last resort, they would eventually sell themselves as workers to that person that owed the debt. So it wasn't like, you know, like today. You know, today you got, you know, lawyers that can find loopholes and you know, bankruptcy policies and stuff like that. There was no bankruptcy like that back then. But I want us to kind of get the message of what's being said here. So let's continue. Let's continue in verses 4 through 6.
Verse 4. If his master have given him a wife, and she have borne him sons or daughters, and the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out by himself. And if the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will go out free.
I will not go out free.
I will not go out free. Then his master shall bring him unto the judges. He shall also bring him to the door, or unto the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him
Forever. Now this is very deep. Now, I want you to look at a couple of things here. All right, so let's look at a message that's being said here. I know that, you know, servitude is a very touchy topic, but let's see what this, you know, the scripture is actually pointing out, because this stuff all points to God's plan to salvation. So if you go back up to verses 2 and 3, it says, 6 years he shall serve, but on the 7th he shall go out free. Right? We know that this is pointing towards his kingdom. Right?
Same thing.
So this is a small example of how you're going to be entering into his kingdom. Right? It also says if he came in by himself, he goes by himself, right?
Amen.
Which knows that you're not responsible for anybody else but you, right?
Amen.
And although, you know, we let's go down to 4 again. I'm gonna go over it. It says, and if a master has given him a wife, right, and they bore them sons and daughters, the wife and the children belong to the master, right? Right? But if the servant said that he didn't want to leave his wife and children, and he loved his master, that he would pierce his ear, bore an awl in his ear, and serve him forever. Now, we marry spouses, right? We marry spouses, men, we marry wives, wives marry husbands, and together we have children. But at the end of the day, all that belongs to God, right? We came in by ourselves. And we have to answer for ourselves. Right? But, now watch this. See, being a servant was, in those times, was an honorable thing. It was a thing of gratitude and appreciation for the forgiveness of debts that you owe the person that you were working for. Right? And somebody get Titus 1:1. Titus 1:1. Because you see, Titus, James, Peter, and Jude called themselves servants of God. So somebody read Titus 1:1.
Paul, a servant of God, and an apostle of Jesus Christ, according to the faith of God's elect, and the acknowledging of the truth which is after godliness.
All right. Somebody read James 1:1. James 1:1.
James, the servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting.
That's right. Somebody read 2 Peter 1:1. 2 Peter 1:1.
Simon Peter, a servant and an apostle of Jesus Christ, to them that have obtained like precious faith with us through the righteousness of God and of our Savior Jesus Christ.
Amen. So somebody read Jude finally. Jude 1:1. Jude 1:1.
Jude, the servant of Jesus Christ and brother of James, to them that are sanctified by God the Father and preserved in Jesus Christ and called.
Mm-hmm. So do we see a common thing here? To be a servant of God, right? And I'm going to ask, are you a bond servant for God? Are you willing to serve him forever and bore an awl in your ear and pierce your ear for him? And if you do that, serving him, you will make it into his kingdom and be his forever. So this is the message that I want you to get out of the servitude scriptures, because it's all pointing to that. Amen. So we're going to continue on. We're just going to slowly go through them. There's no rush today. When time hits, it hits. But we're just going to slowly go through these. So we're going to go back to Exodus 21 and pick it up in verse 7 and just slowly go down. Somebody read 7.
If a man sell his daughter to be a maidservant, she shall not go out as a manservant.
All right. So, whoa, you see that if a man sells his daughter to be a maid. Now, this ain't just some woman being sold into slavery or something like that. Eventually, you know, like I said, a person would sell themselves to pay off a debt. But also, fathers would give their daughters to be betrothed as well. So this has to do with being married, being betrothed to the owner or to the master. All right, we're gonna keep on. We're gonna keep on going down, and it'll explain more about it. Keep on going to verse 9.
Skip to 9.
Just go, go to 8. I'm sorry. Go to 8.
If she please not her master, who hath betrothed her to himself, then shall he let her be redeemed. To sell her unto a strange nation, he shall have no power, seeing he hath dealt deceitfully with her.
All right, so basically, if he wasn't happy with her, he couldn't just sell her to a strange nation. He had to allow her to be redeemed back to her family, right? Because it was forbidden to sell them off to a strange nation. Keep going.
If he have betrothed her to his son, he shall deal with her after the manner of daughters.
All right, so you see that this has everything to do with being betrothed. So if he betrothed her to the son, which, if he had got the daughter for the son, he had to deal with her the same as the daughter, right? Keep going, 10.
If he take him another wife, her food, her raiment, and her duty of marriage shall he not diminish.
In 11.
If he do not these three unto her, then shall she go out free without money.
So actually, this was put in place to protect the woman, right? To protect the daughter that's being betrothed, because this was to prevent somebody from breaking faith for her. So if you betroth the daughter, and then all of a sudden you change your mind, then this stuff was put in place to give her protection. She could be redeemed back to her family. All right. So, any questions so far? We good on that? If not, we're gonna continue. Let's pick it up in verse 12. This verse 12 has this is dealing with manslaughter, accidents, and things of this nature. So we're gonna pick it up in verse 12. Anybody can read that would like to read.
He that sinneth so that he die shall be surely put to death.
All right, so him that smiteth a man, right? He that smiteth a man so that he die shall surely be put to death, right? So you see that somebody that intentionally killed somebody or struck somebody so that they died should be put to death. You see what they would call capital punishment for this crime, because you intentionally did that, right? This is you for the first time. You might be seeing what they call the death penalty. Let's go to Genesis 9. Genesis 9 and 6. Genesis 9 and 6. Somebody get that? They can go ahead and read.
Whoso sheddeth a man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of God he made man.
Right, so you see that God is very serious about the shedding of innocent blood. He's very serious about murder, right? And remember I was telling you how all these laws, they tie right back into the Ten Commandments? So this passage right here should automatically make you think about what commandment?
Thou shalt not kill.
The sixth commandment, thou shalt not kill, right? And actually, if you properly translate that word in the Hebrew, is rasah, which means murder, right? Now, so when you see thou shalt not kill, properly translated as murder. Okay, let's continue in verse 13 and 14. Somebody read 13 and 14.
I did not set my bow in the cloud.
Exodus.
No, Exodus. I'm sorry, Exodus 21. Exodus 21, 13 and 14. Exodus 21, 13 and 14.
And if a man lie not in wait, but God deliver him into his hand, then I will appoint thee a place whither he shall flee. But if a man come presumptuously upon his neighbor to slay him with guile, thou shalt take him from mine altar, and he will die.
All right, so you see two different situations, two different judgments going on here. So that shows you that there is a difference between intentionally murdering someone and somebody who was delivered to him by an accident, right? It says that if it was an accident, they would be appointed a place to flee, right? So, and we know that that place to flee was a city of refuge, right? So, in this place to flee that was appointed, why did God appoint a city of refuge, and what is the purpose that it serves?
It was time for the judges to look at the matter,
Right?
to determine that what he said happened actually happened. Because you got the family who was heated,
Right?
and they may not look at it righteously.
Right.
So they may want to take action right away.
Correct.
Without seeing what the whole issue is
The
about.
whole matter was, and that's exactly correct, Pastor. That is exactly correct. Let's get more on that understanding and turn to Numbers 35, and that's exactly right what he said. So we're gonna go to Numbers 35, and we're gonna pick it up in verse 9 through 12.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When ye become over Jordan into the land of Canaan, then ye shall appoint you cities to be cities of refuge for you, that the slayer may flee thither, which killeth any person at unawares.
Real quick, hold on 1 second. You see what it just said, right? That the slayer may flee thither, which kill any person unaware. So again, you can see that when you just reading, and I want to point this out real quick. This is why it's important to understand what a commandment is, what a statute is, what an ordinance is in a judgment. Because when you just read, thou shalt not kill, if you don't apply this stuff,
That's true.
you won't be able to differentiate.
That's right. That's right.
You see what I'm saying? So you see that there's a different judgment here for the person that made an accident. Just like today, when you know, if somebody, you know, dies and get killed, you know, in a court because of murder, in a lot of states you still have what they call a death penalty, right? But you have situations where a person gets killed accidentally. You know, you get judged according to that, and that's what these cities were for. All right, so let's skip down to verse 15.
You want it 9 through 11?
Oh, 9 through 11. I'm sorry, let's finish that up.
Okay, well, I just finished 11.
12. 9 through 12.
And they shall be unto you cities for refuge for the avenger, that the manslayer die not until he stand before the congregation in judgment.
Right. So you see, that's exactly what Pastor was saying. That, you know, they get their day in court, right? Skip down to 15.
These 6 cities shall be a refuge, both for the children of Israel, and for the stranger, and for the sojourner among them, that every one that killeth any person unawares may flee thither.
So you see that everybody had their chance in court, not just Israel, everybody. Those that was joining with them. So if they was caught up in it, they were able to utilize these cities, right? Now I'm gonna give a brief example of a situation where you might need these cities. Let's say person A and person B are lumberjacks, right? And person A and B are working together, and person A is chopping down the tree and it falls back on person B and kills person B, right? Now, although person A may have made an accident, maybe person B's family didn't feel like it was an accident. Maybe they felt like you plotted this and tried to do this, right? And you chopped it in a way that it fell back on person B and killed person B, right? So, with that being said, that's why it was important to have these cities so a person can have their day in court, right?
Yeah.
So the whole matter can be seen and be brought, you know, to the forefront so it can be judged righteously, right, so,
Example.
yes.
So, sir, unfortunately, we're driving and we hit somebody and kill them.
Right.
Now, I know the law here states that if you stay at the scene, you're not really at fault, but if you flee the scene, they say you're at fault, meaning they'll
Right.
put you on judgment and put you in jail. So, trying to match it up with the scriptures,
Right.
fleeing through, to a city of refugees, refuge, sorry. How can we compare that with today's?
Today?
Yeah.
All right, well, a lot of the laws, like I said earlier, came from out of here. You know, they patterned themselves. We may not do it exactly how I said, but they did pattern a lot. So your example was that if somebody hit somebody, and we have a lot of this happening, especially in South Florida, hit and run.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Now, if somebody hits somebody, no matter whether they flee or stay, they still have to go to court to determine who was at fault. Right? That's the first thing. Now, by you not fleeing and rendering aid, that shows that, you know, that shows a part of your intention.
A positive intention.
Right? It shows that, hey, in your mind, I feel like maybe this was an accident.
Right.
Because now I didn't see this person, I hit this person, and now I'm trying to render aid to this person.
Mm-hmm.
But if a person hits somebody, know that they hit somebody and just drive off,
That shows a guilty.
that's not gonna look too good in the court. You see what I'm saying? It's gonna show that you didn't care. Now you still have to go to court to determine that you weren't falling asleep driving or drinking and driving or texting or what have you. So the court will be to see how this was done, right? But by you stopping and rendering aid, that will make the case look better. So hopefully that answers your question. All right, so where do we stop on 25? Anybody else? Anybody else got a question? All right, so let's pick it up 26 through 32.
Saying what?
I'm sorry, 26 through 34. We still in Numbers 35?
But if the slayer shall at any time come without the border of the city of his refuge, whether he was fled, and the avenger of blood find him without the borders of the city of his refuge, and the revenger of blood kill the slayer, he shall not be guilty of blood. Because he should have remained in the city.
He should have remained in the
of his
city.
refuge, until the death of the highest priest. But after the death of the highest priest, the slayer shall return unto the land of his possession.
All right, so stop right there.
Right.
Just like Pastor like to say, on the way of learning something, you learn something.
There it is.
Now check this out. Now, as long as that slayer stays in that city, he's safe, right?
Yeah.
Now, what does that make you think of?
He ain't guilty.
Right? Not only that,
Denied.
but moving forward with Christ, right? When you go into the city of refuge with Christ, you got to stay in him, right?
That's right.
Now watch this. It says as long as he stays in that city, he's safe. But if he goes out and gets killed, then the person that killed him is going to be free. He ain't going to have no blood on his hands. So when you decide to go away from God and you get killed, that blood is going to be on whose hands?
On your hand.
On your hands.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, I just had to get that out. So, all right, let's continue. You stopped at, I believe you stopped at 28, so 29 to 32.
Okay.
34.
So, go through which verse?
29 to 34, I'm sorry.
So these things shall be for a statute of judgment unto you throughout your generations and all your dwellings. Whoso killeth any person, the murderer, shall be put to death by the mouth of witnesses. But one witness shall not testify against any person to cause him to die. Moreover, ye shall take no satisfaction for the life of a murderer, which is guilty of death.
Mm-hmm.
But he shall be surely put to death. And ye shall take no satisfaction for him that is fled to the city of his refuge,
Mm-hmm.
that he should come again to dwell in the land until the death of the priest. So ye shall not pollute the land wherein ye are, for blood it defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it.
Mm-hmm.
Defile not therefore the land which ye shall inhabit, wherein I dwell, for I the Lord dwell among the children of Israel.
Right, so you see right here that you had to be impartial in your testimony, right? And you couldn't show favor on either side, for the guilty or the innocent, right? You couldn't show any favor, because innocent blood defiled the land, and the only way that it could be cleansed is through the one who shed it. So justice had to be served, right?
Yeah, Pastor.
That individual had to be put to death, right? To keep the land undefiled. Now, here you go again, real quick. Which commandment can you chime to this about? You notice it said that there had to be witnesses and testimonies.
Right?
So which commandment could you chime to that from the 10 Commandments?
Bear false.
Thou shalt not bear false witness. So again, we see how it's tying right back into the 10 Commandments. Pastor, go ahead with your question.
You know, no, it's just a comment. I notice here that we don't take no satisfaction. Some states do have a death penalty. It is what it is, but nobody should take satisfaction in that.
Right. Shouldn't be like a spectacle.
Right.
You know, it shouldn't be a spectacle. A person should be put to death, like, I'm going to use the Emmett Till situation, right? A person should be put to death by you manipulating the facts, right? Because they had to be, the innocent blood had to be avenged.
Right. And the other thing is, it says, I like it says, the murderer should be put to death by the mouth of witnesses.
Right, witnesses, right.
And it can't be one.
That's right.
You know, so one person, just like any court of the law, is my word against your word.
Right.
You know, but if you got multiple witnesses, it takes multiple witnesses to convict somebody.
And that's correct. And you see a lot of what our court system does, right? And court systems abroad. Again, they take a lot of this out of the Bible, right?
Yeah.
You need multiple, 2 or 3 or more witnesses to establish a fact, right?
Can I ask a trivia question?
Sure.
For today? Because today, suppose nobody else sees you do it, how else can they capture you? Cameras.
Cameras.
Everywhere.
That's a major
Where
witness.
you go, they got cameras. They're gonna catch you.
That's correct.
You don't need a witness. What you gotta do is show the video.
Yeah.
That's 100%.
When they, what you say, all these statutes that they say you shall surely be put to death if you kill somebody or whatever, like, is there a court system that at this time that they gotta go to court and then they're gonna say, okay, he killed
Yeah.
whoever, then he gotta go to court?
Yeah, that's what it is. That's
One
what,
judge or several judges? I mean, how
well, in these passages right here, it don't say how many judges, right? But you see that,
more than one witness?
right, you gotta have more than one witness, but you see that that was the whole purpose of this city, of these cities. It was 6 of them, right? That were ran by the Levites, right? And
So the Levites pretty much the judges.
well, you had
The judges were the
other judges, like
judges.
we read in Deuteronomy. I believe it was Deuteronomy. Real quick. Yeah, it was Deuteronomy 16, 18 through 20. You see that the judges were appointed,
Deborah was the judge.
right?
Deborah. She's a woman.
Right.
She was appointed as a judge.
Right, so you had judges throughout time, but you had these cities so they can have their day in court and the matter could be judged righteously. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I think, right, that judges then work out like different from
there are different types of judges, let's put it that way.
Right.
Because you have judges who would actually be leading the nations, and then you would have those who were judges to really judge matters
Right.
differently from those who were leading the nations. Because for over 400 years, Israel were being led by judges.
Right.
Those who were going out to war and such like that, like as Deborah is mentioned there,
Right.
which was not one that she sits in the judgment seat
Right.
and judge small matters like the Levites would actually do. So
Right.
judges in that term was like certain offices, certain people would be in certain offices as judges before they start to have kings and such like that for the nation.
And I thank you for that. That's exactly correct. Like you said, you will have judges appointed to handle certain matters, right? That were different from judges that were leading the nation. So that is exactly correct. All right. So got anybody else?
So, according to the word that we read, this was basically for the Israelites, how they ruled and carried out certain things that happened in their district. But nowadays, we can see where the court system copied basically the same thing from the Bible. The place of refuge for them is the prison.
Well,
What?
I wouldn't say that.
Why I say that is because they'll kill somebody, murder somebody, and they'll put them there so people don't get them.
That's true.
But people get them in prison. And speaking of prison, right? That's a place that I worked for over 15 years.
Yeah.
So I seen it firsthand.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I was taking it into example like George Zimmerman or any other person who took a gun and killed somebody. They know what they were doing, and still yet they have that place of refuge.
I wouldn't say it was a place of refuge because their rights were taken up. They didn't really have that much freedom.
Because they always gotta look over the shoulder, always somebody after, they know they did wrong.
Yes.
Right, but
Somebody at some point, they slip, or they're always looking back. You know,
But I wouldn't say that it's a place of refuge. All right. What this is talking about as a place, this was a place that a person can safely await until they were tried.
And their rights weren't taken away.
So there was a city where they wouldn't be, somebody would take a revenge on them.
But they was just saying what they can walk free.
Right, they're
Yeah.
free, they can operate, they can live peacefully because they were supposed to be protected in the city until they were tried. And you saw earlier in the commandments that it said if a man slays somebody with God, take him away from my altar, and he should be put to death. Right? So you can see that it's a slight difference. You know, it's a,
Basically, it's like he's in some kind of an exile until, right?
Yeah,
well, what they would do, they would, remember the example I gave about the two lumberjacks? Now, if I'm a lumberjack and my tree fell back and killed somebody by accident, and they would come and escort you to this city, and their job was to keep you safe, almost like how you see a Secret Service walking around the president. But they want to keep you safe until you can have your day in court.
Because isn't that the same thing with the prison does?
because your
No,
rights are
no.
taken away in prison.
Your rights taken away in prison, and it ain't nobody. Let me tell you something. They actually, let me just. I digress. But
I digress, bro.
yeah, no.
Don't let it know.
All right, yeah. I put it like this: certain crimes people don't take too kindly to. So you see what happened at Dylan Roof, right? Now let's continue on. These next couple of commandments are dealing with respecting authority, and we're gonna get right into it. Let's go to Exodus 21. Exodus 21, and we're gonna go read verse 15, and then we're gonna skip down to 17.
And he that smiteth his father or his mother shall be surely put to death.
All right, read 17.
And he that curseth his father or his mother shall surely be put to death.
Okay, now we know right away that it's definitely limited factors here. That we can't do this in this country, right? Because that'd be considered murder, right? What? Hmm?
Child abuse.
Right. If you put him to death, that would be murder, right? This wasn't in. I just say this: when they were in the land, this is how it would have been handled, right? And this was a strong deterrent. Trust me, this was a strong deterrent because the person that did it certainly wouldn't get another chance to do it again, right? And the people that saw it happen would definitely probably change their mind so they wouldn't do it. And this wasn't just simple disrespect like not washing dishes or taking out the trash or whatever it is. This was the type of disrespect and rebellion that shifted the order of the household. You know, when you had, Noah said he that smited, right? So you had children that were trying to overthrow the parents by jumping on them, beating them up, and cursing them, and things of nature, to the point where the parents were becoming afraid of the children. They had to be dealt with. And again, they had to be brought in front of a judge. So they had to be brought up into the elders, right? And the matter had to be judged. The parents didn't just do it. The matter had to be judged, right? So let's get matter of fact, let's go into an ordinance of this in Deuteronomy 21, 18 through 21. Deuteronomy 21, 18 through 21.
And it says, if a man have a stubborn and rebellious son, which will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and that, when he have chastened him, will not hearken unto them, then shall his father and his mother lay hold on him, and bring him out into the elders of his city, and unto the gate of his place. And they shall say unto the elders of his city, this our son is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. And all the men of his city shall stone him with stones, that he die. So shall thou put evil away from among you, and all Israel shall hear and fear.
So we know that God knows best, and you see that this wasn't a common disobedience. This was a stubborn rebellion. And you see an ordinance, you see that after the parents had tried everything that they could, then they would bring them in front of the elders, and this would happen, right? So what commandment can we use in this situation from the Ten Commandments that it should remind you of?
Days may be long.
Right. That's short right there.
Because if you did the opposite, they were going to be shortened by this ordinance right here, right? So, again, I just want to point out how all this ties right back into the Ten Commandments. Somebody read Proverbs 22 and 6. We should know that. Proverbs 22 and 6.
Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it.
Now, this is very important that you train up a child in the way that they should go, right? Because this is the beginning of training your children so they won't end up in this situation, right? Somebody read Deuteronomy 11, verses 18 through 21. Right? Deuteronomy 11, 18 through 21.
Therefore shall ye lay up these words in your heart, and in your soul. Deuteronomy
11.
18 through 21?
Yeah, 18 through 21.
Therefore shall ye lay up these words in your heart and in your soul, and bind them for a sign upon your hand, that they may be as frontlets between your eyes. And ye shall teach them to your children, speaking of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. And thou shalt write them upon the doorposts of thine house and upon thy gates, that your days may be multiplied in the days of your children in the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers to give them, as the days of heaven upon earth.
So parents, you see, we have a responsibility so our children won't end up in that situation where their life is short. Somebody please read Ephesians. Well, you know what? I'll read it for the sake of time. It's Ephesians, the 6th chapter and the 4th verse.
Brother Harold, can I just make one comment?
Yes.
Because when it says, write these upon the doorposts of your house and upon your gates, these are the rules of the house.
Yes.
That's all it means. These are the house rules.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I want to just bring that.
Yeah, and these are the things that should be the dominant thing that you're teaching in your house, the ways of the Lord, right? All right, so, and I agree, that's exactly right. Ephesians 6, verse 4 says, and ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but to bring them up in nurture and admonition of the Lord, right? So it's our job to bring them up in the ways of the Lord, because their very lives depend on us doing it.
That's right. That's right.
Right? And we know Romans 6 said the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life through Christ, Jesus Christ, our Lord, right? Now, I got a question for y'all. Today, if you had a child that was in that type of situation, of stubborn rebellion to the point to where, you know, they jumping on the parent, they usurping authority and they shifting the power. Now, how would you handle that here in this country?
If you lived under your roof?
Yeah, if you live up under your roof, how would you handle that righteously, or how would you handle that legally, so to speak?
If you do not respond, if you do not follow the rules of the house, you don't need to be in the house.
All right, so he'll put him out.
The rules are today, you got to go evict your children. You have to evict
Yeah, you do. You can't just
from the house. You can't just take your child and say, don't come up in here more and throw any clothes out.
Right.
The police gonna knock on the door.
And tell them to bring them back
and they
in.
gonna tell you, let your child back in. And if you become too aggressive with the child, the
Right.
child will get a restraining order against you.
That's
And put
correct.
you out of your own house.
That's correct.
Is that true?
Yes, that's true. That's
Right.
right. So if you want your child out of your house, so if you let a relative come and stay with you after 2 weeks, and they stand in your house, and you say, hey, I want you to come to church. Yeah, I'm not feeling good today. Then they stay another week. You know, I'm just not coming to church. Well, you know, you got to get out of here. Well, wait till I find a place. No, you got to leave now. You can't put them out because they're there for 2 weeks. They become a resident in your house. You must
Do it the proper way.
evict them. That's why my wife don't have nobody come to the house.
That's right. That's right.
Now, that is exactly right. Now, there is a proper legal way for, maybe you know somebody that's in this situation, right? And it's called, who's heard of the law of incorrigibility? Incorrigibility. All right, so I'll read the definition of incorrigibility.
Fix it up.
All right, so the law of incorrigibility, if you Google it, you look it up, it's a child is considered incorrigible when a child repeatedly or habitually disobeys the directions of the child's lawful parents, right? Guardians or custodians. When a child refuses to accept these orders, this can cause significant problems for the child, for the guardians, and the environment which the child resides, right? Now, it is up to a juvenile court to determine if the child is incorrigible, right? The process differs slightly among states, but typically begins when a parent, guardian, custodian, or therapist submits a petition or a statement to a prosecutor or a juvenile intake officer. It'll be formal proceedings, and a judge will then determine if the child is incorrigible, and they will eventually be taken into custody and removed. And like I said, a lot of these laws, they take patterns. Now you may not take everything, but they take some patterns out of the Bible. So you couldn't stone them, but if you did have a child that was to this point, there is something you can do about it. So I just wanted to share that. Let's, for the sake of time, because we're getting close to the time, let's continue on this in Exodus 21, and we're going to read 18 and 19, and this deals with accidents.
Oh.
All right, so Exodus 21, 18 and 19. Somebody please read that.
If a man strives together and smite another with his stone, or with his fist, he died not, but he is dead. If he rise again and walks abroad upon his faculty, then shall he that smoke him be quick. Only he shall pay for the loss of his time, and shall cause him to be thoroughly healed.
Right. Now, you see that a situation happened here. It said that men strive together, right? And one smite another one with a stone or a fist. So basically, if two people are fighting, then somebody strikes somebody to the point where they become immobile or paralyzed, you couldn't just shrug your shoulders and say, well, you shouldn't have bothered me, right? You had a responsibility to see that person back to their health so they can earn an income for their family again, right? You couldn't just walk away from the situation, right? Now, you see that it says, but if he rise up and walk again, that the person shall be quit. And again, if you translate that word in the Hebrew, it's just saying that the person should be innocent or acquitted. So y'all fight, and he get up and rise again, then you good. But if that person is paralyzed or injured for a good amount of time, then you had a responsibility to make sure that that person was well again, right? And this isn't just limited to fighting, right? This could be, somebody had a question?
Well, I thought about the time you said,
If you got a question, brother, ask a question.
But what if the person was assaulted by someone and he was unprovoked and he ended up responding in a way where he rendered that person inoperable?
Right, and that'll be a matter for a court, and we have to handle it that way through a judge. But this looks like it appears to be talking about like mutual combat or something like that. But this also is not just limited to fighting. If I'm texting and driving and I hit somebody and they become paralyzed, I can't just walk away from the situation, right? Or if I'm horse playing with somebody and I'm swinging to somebody and knock out a tooth, I can't just shrug my shoulders, right? All right, let's continue with 22 through 25. Exodus 21, 22 through 25. Somebody read that, please.
Exodus, which one?
21 verses 22 through 25.
If men strive and hurt a woman with child, so that her fruit depart from her, and yet no mischief follow, he shall be surely punished.
Okay, so real quick, let me just explain mischief. Mischief simply means injury or death. All right, continue.
He shall, according as a woman's husband will lay upon him, and he shall pay as the judges determine. And if any mischief follow, then thou shalt give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burning for burning, wound for wound, stripe for stripe.
Okay, so I was explaining earlier to Brother Austin, when people read the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, foot for foot, you know, a lot of people try to distance themselves from that, like, well, you know, that was so harsh back in the Old Testament, and, you know, we don't do things like that. But if you actually look at it, it's actually the opposite, right? Because, see, God put this in place to make sure that it was fairness, right? So if a person knocked out my tooth, I couldn't cut off their hand. You see what I'm saying? Or if somebody accidentally killed my child, I couldn't go in their house and kill the whole family. So that's why you see an eye for an eye. I mean, it's equal justice. So if you put out an eye, only thing I can do is put out an eye. I couldn't do 10 times worse. Right? So, how much time I got left? Zero. All right, so this is wrapping up, which I had a wonderful experience in sharing this lesson. This wraps up my lesson on the commandments.
This was good.
And when you get a chance, read through this throughout the days, and read through it and apply as much of it as you can by, the who, what, when, where, how, and understanding how we break it down. So this concludes the lesson for the commandments, and I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time.